The marketplace bustled with life, a chaotic sprawl of colors, scents, and creatures that defied human imagination. Towering beings bartered in growls and clicks, their deep voices vibrating through the dense, humid air. Stalls lined the narrow pathways, overflowing with alien goods, luminescent fungi, writhing serpentine roots, shimmering fabrics that seemed woven from liquid matter. Captain Riley adjusted the strap of his plasma pistol and nodded to his crew to keep close. This was neutral ground, but the wrong deal with the wrong species could still get them killed. Then, in the middle of a particularly grimy stall, amidst cages filled with squawking and screeching creatures, something caught their attention. A wriggling creature, no longer than a forearm, rested lazily in the corner of a reinforced glass container. Its chitinous plating gleamed under the market's neon glow, and every few seconds, a set of curved mandibles snapped idly at the air. The Vendan, a reptilian alien with 3 unblinking yellow eyes, hissed a laugh as he noticed Riley and his crew staring. "Ah, humans, always curious. You have fine taste, yes? This van is a rare find," the Vendan said, his long fingers drumming against the glass. "A baby sand striker. Some call it a." Lieutenant Vega scoffed. "That little thing? Looks like an overgrown caterpillar with an attitude." The creature twitched as if it understood, lifting its head slightly. Its eyes, small, dark slits, locked onto Vega, and in the next instant, it struck. The glass rattled as the creature lunged, mandibles clamping down hard, leaving deep grooves in the reinforced barrier. Vega jumped back. "Shit!" the Vendan cackled. "Oh, don't worry, little Van. The glass holds. For now." Riley stroked his chin, intrigued. "How big do they get?" The Vendan's smirk widened. Fully grown? 3, maybe 4 meters long. Can burrow through solid rock. Skeletons? Nah. Entire body a muscle of destruction." He leaned in, voice lowering. "And very low if raised right." Riley exchanged glances with his crew. Unintelligent, highly dangerous predator? Sounded like a terrible idea. And yet, something about the way it moved, how it studied them with eerie awareness, made him hesitate. Vega folded her arms. "Captain, tell me you're not seriously considering this." Riley grinned. "What's the price?" The Vendan's eyes gleamed. "A special price for you, Captain. 5,000 credits." The entire crew groaned in unison. "For that?" Vega protested. Riley haggled, the way any seasoned trader did, eventually knocking the price down to 100. The Vendan, though reluctant, accepted the deal, transferring the creature into a containment pod lined with restraints. It hissed once before curling up into a ball, its breathing slow and steady. "Welcome aboard, Jeff," Riley said, smirking as he carried the pod away. Vega shook her head. "You named it already? Oh, we are so dead." As they made their way back to the docking bay, the market's sounds faded behind them. None of them noticed the Vendan watching them go, his smirk never faltering. He whispered something in his own guttural tongue, and from the shadows behind his stall, something massive shifted, a deep, rumbling purr vibrating through the ground. The cargo hold of the horizon was dimly lit, the hum of the ship's engines reverberating through the floor. Stacked crates of trade goods lined the walls, each secured for the journey ahead. But all eyes were on the containment pod in the center of the room, where Jeff, the so-called, sat cold, his dark scales reflecting the pale emergency lights. Captain Riley stood with his arms crossed, watching the creature carefully, while Lieutenant Vega, Chief Engineer Holt, and Dr. Morrow looked on with varying degrees of unease. "I still can't believe we brought that thing on board," Vega muttered, pacing with restless energy. Captain, do you even hear yourself?" Holt, ever the pragmatist, knelt by the pod, examining the reinforced glass with a thoughtful frown. The Vendan wasn't lying about its strength. These scratches weren't here before. If it keeps that up, we might need something stronger. Dr. Morrow, the ship's, tapped on her, running scans on the creature's vitals. "It's fascinating. Its metabolism is incredibly high for a species this young. The energy levels in its muscles suggest it could launch itself at speeds that defy normal physics. She looked up, adjusting her glasses. This thing is a born predator. Jeff's mandibles twitched as if he understood. Riley smirked, kneeling closer to the pod. So, what do you eat, buddy? The response was immediate, a low, guttural clicking sound that sent a shiver down Vega's spine. I hate that. I hate that it tucks. Maro scrolled through her scans. It's not tucking, Vega. It's communicating. Most likely an instinctual response to external stimuli. It could be a form of emotional reaction. Vega raised an eyebrow. You mean like hunger? As if on cue, Jeff lunged at the glass, slamming his body against it with surprising force. The entire pod rattled, and for a split second, Riley swore he saw something flash in its dark eyes. Intelligence? Hunger? Poke? Okay, Holt sighed, standing up. I'll put together some reinforced plating for the pod. In the meantime, what the hell are we feeding it? Riley rubbed his chin. The Vendan didn't say, did he? Dr. Maro scrolled through her notes. Based on its biological structure, it likely needs raw protein, probably live food. We could synthesize something, but it might not be enough. Vega groaned. Great. We've got a growing Merden worm on board, and it eats live prey. That's comforting. Holt tapped a nearby crate. We've still got some livestock in stasis for the trade deal on Prime. Maybe we give it one of the smaller vans? A test run. Riley hesitated but nodded. Do it. Holt accessed the ship's inventory and selected a small creature, a rodent native to the rim colonies. The stasis field flickered as the animal was teleported into a separate, controlled environment within the containment pod. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, Jeff called. The transformation was instant. The creature exploded into motion, its sleek, muscular body shifting and naturally fast. It struck the rodent with precision, mandibles locking around it in a single, brutal snap. The poor creature didn't even have time to squeal before it was crushed, its form disappearing into Jeff's maw. Silence filled the room. Well, Holt muttered. That was horrifying. Jeff let out a satisfied, guttural trill before curling back into a tight call, his body pulsing slightly as he digested his meal. Dr. Morrow's beeped. Incredible, his metabolic rate just spiked. That single meal is fueling a rapid growth cycle. Riley exhaled. Guess that means we need to be careful how much we feed him. Vega pinched the bridge of her nose. Or, not feed him and drop him off at the next space station before he eats us instead. Riley grinned, stepping away. Where's the fan in that? Before Vega could launch into another protest, a sharp alert blared through the intercom. Incoming vessel detected. Unregistered ID. No active transponder. The crew stiffened. Holt narrowed his eyes. Pirates. Riley tacked his earpiece. Bridge, what's their trajectory? The voice of their pilot, Ortega, crackled through. They came out of nowhere. They're running cold, no lights, no shields, no weapons powered up. Just drifting toward us. Riley frowned. That's not pirate behavior. Dr. Morrow glanced at Jeff, still curled in his pod, seemingly. Something doesn't feel right about this. Vega grabbed her rifle. Agreed. I say we get ready for company. The ship shuddered slightly as the unknown vessel continued its approach. From inside the containment pod, Jeff clicked again. This time, it sounded almost eager. The air inside the horizon felt heavier than usual, thick with an unspoken tension that settled over the crew like an impending storm. In the dim lighting of the command deck, Captain Riley stood rigid, arms crossed as he stared at the central. The unknown vessel that had been drifting toward them was now fully within visual range, its dark hull barely reflecting the distant starlight. It was an old freighter, battered, scorched, and long since abandoned by its original owners. Lieutenant Vega paced near the weapons console, her fingers twitching over the controls. I don't like this. It's just sitting there. No hails, no distress signals. Could be a trap. Holt, The engineer leaned against the bulkhead, eyes scanning the diagnostic readout. No power signatures. If there's anyone inside, they're running on emergency life support. But the hull's intact, no breaches, no obvious damage beyond age and beta scars. Dr. Morrow adjusted her glasses, eyes narrowing at the spectral analysis on her. There's something strange about it. There's residual energy, faint traces of something biological. Almost parasitic. Riley's gut twisted at that word. He had encountered parasites before. He had fought them before. And if there was one thing he knew, it was that space was home to horrors that didn't always make themselves known right away. Ortega, their pilot, chimed in from the bridge. "Captain, I've got movement." The words sent a ripple of unease through the room. "Clarify," Riley ordered. A screen flickered to life, showing a grainy image of the freighter's starboard side. A thin, serpentine figure slithered across the hull, something long and sinewy, almost, but with jagged, segmented plating running down its body. It moved with unsettling purpose, calling around the exterior, feeling its way along as if searching for something. "Yeah, I really don't like this," Vega muttered. "Are we sure that thing isn't alive? As in the ship itself?" Dr. Morrow ran a quick scan and frowned. "It's aorganic, but it's not part of the ship. More like something on it, clinging to it. I think the ship's been infested." Holt swore under his breath. If there's one of those things, there could be more. A sudden screech rang through the comms, followed by static. Everyone flinched as the audio cut out for a few seconds before crackling back to life. Ortega's voice came through, strained. "Something just pinged us. I don't know how, but our proximity scanners just got a return signal from inside that ship. It's faint, but something's awake in there." Riley exchanged a glance with Vega. "We're not boarding it. Not until we know what we're dealing with." Vega nodded. "Good call." Before anyone could respond, the ship trembled slightly. A low, rhythmic thud echoed through the hull. Something was touching the horizon. The sound was distant, methodical, like testing pressure points. Jeff, still in his containment pod in the corner, suddenly uncalled. His sleek, armored body tensed, mandibles twitching. He let out a deep, guttural series of clicks, one after another, like a warning. Morrow turned toward the pod, watching as Jeff pressed against the reinforced glass, his body shifting with unnatural grace. "He knows something's out there." Vega tightened her grip on her rifle. "Fantastic. The nervous. That makes me feel so much better." Another sound, this time, a scraping noise along the exterior airlock. Something was trying to get inside. Ortega's voice crackled over the intercom again. "Captain, whatever's on that freighter, it just, oh shit, it's moving fast. I've got a mass signature breaking away from the hull. It's coming straight for us." "Shields up," Riley barked. Too late. A heavy impact shook the ship, sending a shudder through the decks. Emergency lights flickered as the automated defense systems activated, targeting whatever had latched onto them. Vega moved to the weapons console, her hands flying across the controls. Firing point defense turrets. A distorted, otherworldly shriek tore through the ship's audio systems, cutting Vega off. The sound wasn't just noise, it felt like something more. A presence. An intelligence. It wasn't just some mindless creature. It was aware. And it was angry. Jeff suddenly slammed his body against his containment pod, hardened this time, his mandibles gnashing. The reinforced glass groaned under the pressure. He wasn't attacking at random. He was reacting. Responding. Morrow's eyes widened. "Captain, I think he understands them." Riley turned to her, trying to process what that meant, but before he could ask, a loud crack echoed through the ship. The containment pod's glass fractured. Everyone froze. Jeff, their so-called pet, clicked again, lower this time, almost like a growl. His body pulsed, calling tightly before. Crash. The pod shattered, shards of reinforced glass scattering across the deck. Jeff didn't attack. He didn't lunge. He didn't even acknowledge the crew. Instead, he turned toward the direction of the hull breach, mandibles clicking rapidly, his body shifting with a newfound sense of purpose. The ship trembled again, another impact sending alarms blaring through the corridor. Captain Vega started, her voice low. Tell me we're not letting that thing loose on our own ship. Riley exhaled, staring at Jeff as the creature let out a deep, reverberating trill. For the first time since acquiring him, Da wasn't just reacting. The airlock seal shut behind them with a hiss, the sound barely audible over the klaxon alarms still blaring throughout the ship. The horizon rocked violently as another impact struck the hull, the force sending vibrations through the deck plating. Captain Riley steadied himself against the nearest bulkhead, his gaze flicking to Jeff, who remained eerily still. His segmented body called with controlled tension, mandibles clicking in a slow, deliberate rhythm. He was listening. Vega, rifle raised, whispered, "We shouldn't be doing this." "Don't have a choice," Riley shot back. "Whatever those things are, they're not stopping." Ortega's voice crackled through the comms, laced with panic. "Captain, we've got multiples incoming. 4 inside the ship, another 2 trying to breach the secondary hull. I don't know what the hell they are, but they're moving like they know this ship better than we do." Riley clenched his jaw. This was more than just some mindless infestation. These creatures were coordinated, tactical, intelligent. A deep, guttural chittering echoed through the corridor ahead of them. A shadow moved beyond the flickering emergency lights, something tall, spindly, and covered in sinewy, blackened plating. Its elongated head turned slightly, as if sensing them. Then another form emerged beside it. And another. Their bodies shifted unnaturally, limbs contorting in a way that shouldn't have been possible. "Open fire," Riley ordered. Vega didn't hesitate. A barrage of plasma rounds ripped through the dim corridor, striking the first creature dead center. It let out a piercing screech, the blast tearing through its plated chest and sending it crumpling to the floor. The second lunged forward, impossibly fast, barely phased by the attack. It slammed into the bulkhead inches from Riley, its claws slicing deep grooves into the metal. Jeff moved. The surged forward like a cold spring unleashing its full force. His mandibles latched onto the creature's head, and with a single powerful twist, he ripped it clean off. The body spasmed for a brief moment before collapsing. Jeff clicked his mandibles rapidly, his body shifting as he turned toward the others. The remaining creatures hesitated. They recognized him. Did they just stop? Vega muttered. Dr. Morrow, still gripping the edge of a console, studied Jeff's body language carefully. "They're afraid of him," she realized aloud. Or maybe they recognize him as. The deck beneath them shuddered violently. Ortega's panicked voice came through the comms again. "Captain, I don't know what's happening, but that thing, the ship we docked with, it's waking up." Riley's stomach turned to ice. A deep, resounding thrum filled the air, like the sound of an enormous, ancient engine groaning back to life. The damaged freighter that had been floating lifelessly now pulsed with an eerie, aorganic energy. The dark plating of its hull seemed to shift, ripple, as though something massive beneath it had begun to stir. "We need to go," Riley ordered. "Now!" One of the creatures let out a clicking wail, lunging toward them in desperation, but Jeff intercepted it. His body wrapped around it like a constrictor, his mandibles digging into its throat before he flung it against the bulkhead with a sickening crunch. The body glowed faintly, pulsating along the bioluminescent patterns on his plating. The creatures that remained turned and fled. They weren't fighting anymore. They were running. "Oh, I really don't like that," Vega muttered. The lights on the horizon flickered violently, warning sirens screaming throughout the ship. Holt's voice cut through the chaos on the comms. "Captain, you need to see this." Riley and the team sprinted back toward the bridge, Jeff slithering alongside them with unsettling speed. When they burst through the reinforced doors, in the center of the room was flickering with new data, an external visual feed of the freighter. It wasn't a freighter anymore. The ship's hull was unraveling, shifting as if shedding a disguise. Beneath the false plating, something dark and alive pulsed, stretching outward. Aorganic tendrils, massive and encalling, slithered from the exposed structure, reaching into space like grasping limbs. The remains of the vessel were nothing more than a husk. This thing had been growing inside of it. What in the actual hell? Vega started, but the words died in her throat. The horizon's proximity alarms blared, flashing red warnings across every screen. Morrow gasped. It's absorbing the wreckage. Jeff called beside them, clicking rapidly. For the first time, Riley realized something. Jeff wasn't just reacting to the situation. He was responding to it. He knew what this thing was. Ortega's hands were on the controls. Captain, if we don't leave right now, we're going to be a part of whatever the hell this thing is turning into. Riley hesitated only for a moment. He turned to Jeff. The glowing markings pulsed once. A signal. Riley didn't need words to understand. Get us the hell out of here. Ortega didn't wait for further orders. The engines roared to life as the horizon powered up its thrusters. The ship twisted away from the abomination that had once been a freighter, and the FTL drive engaged, wrenching them away just as the writhing entity let out a deep, guttural howl, not of rage, but of recognition, as if it had marked them.